I don't care what spiritual scripture you're looking at, what spiritual text, whether it's the Vedas or the Christian Bible or the Jewish Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, pick one. They all tell us that our body is a vessel. And while we're not our body and we're not meant to worship it, we would all be remiss not to care for it properly to carry us through this journey to do our life's calling. And so when we don't take care of the body because we don't want to make an idol of it, or oh well, that's not me. It's like I can't figure out my eating habits or my sleeping habits or stress, those types of things. Well, that's just not me. I can't figure it out. That's what we're here to figure out, is how do we care for ourselves in a way that actually teaches us to better care for those around us.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people that say from around the world that are watching us, we know where Canada is and we know where beautiful British Columbia is. Where is Prince George? Well, it's about 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, about 800 kilometers. And it's an amazing location. Lots of nature, lots of forest, a beautiful, beautiful place. Today, a very special day. We have a very, very special guest. Her name is AmiLynne Carroll, and we call her Babs. I can call you Babs, AmiLynne?
Well, please do.
And so AmiLynne is interesting, or Babs is interesting. She's a certified holistic practitioner and holistic life coach. But that's not all. She is also an author, a speaker in demand, a steadfast seeker herself. AmiLynne decided to healing and liberating awesome lifestyle and a lot of history that becomes very, very interesting as to who Babs is. So, Babs, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here with you today.
So, holistic healing, what does that really mean?
Well, I think it means a little something different to everybody. So
Right.
what I'll do today is share with you what it means to me.
Okay.
And as I share with you what it means to me today, I would be remiss if I didn't say that it's not the same thing it meant to me even a year ago or 5 years ago, because when I set out on this journey, I didn't recognize the power of the holistic approach. And holistic for me is whole. It's the WHOLE, whole and complete. And so that means every aspect of our life affects every aspect of our life. And so in order for us to see healing, we get to stop putting band-aids and stop and really get to know ourselves, who we are, why we're here, what we're doing, what we're called for. And in doing that, it's fascinating to watch the healing actually take care of itself.
Right. And then it involves obviously the body as well, that it is so precious, and the body is so forgiving. It wants to be healthy, and and it is very, very important that we treat it with care. And then if we do, longevity becomes very interesting, especially if you take care of your body. But it is not only that, as you already indicated, it's the whole you that is important, and especially in your approach to holistic living, really.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it's what we do is we stumble when we think that we can fix something within us by only addressing part of it. And so then we may have addressed that part of it, but as time progresses, it creeps back in. Or those areas that we didn't handle, that we didn't address, begin to seep over into that healthy space, causing it to be of dis-ease or disease. And so it's this space of just really getting to own our wholeness, our completeness. And if we go back to, I don't care what spiritual script you're looking at, what spiritual text, whether it's the Vedas or the Christian Bible or the Jewish Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, pick one. They all tell us that our body is a vessel. And while we're not our body and we're not meant to worship it, we would all be remiss not to care for it properly to carry us through this journey to do our life's calling. And so when we don't take care of the body because we don't want to make an idol of it, or, oh, well, that's not me. It's like, I can't figure out my eating habits or my sleeping habits or stress, those types of things. Well, that's just not me. I can't figure it out. That's what we're here to figure out, is how do we care for ourselves in a way that actually teaches us to better care for those around us. But if we don't start at home, there's a lack of fulfillment in supporting others around us because it's all transient. It's all impermanent.
Now, something happened to you, as it does to many of us, actually, including me, that gave you a shock, although you were, as I understand it, already on the holistic path, but all of a sudden you got a shock of reality that kind of threw you for a spin, to say the least.
Well, the initial shock, I was not on a holistic approach. The initial shock was back in 2007. And I had moved to the Mayo Clinic down in Jacksonville, brain cancer, and I'd been accepted into an experimental program down there and made that move. And quite, long story, very shortened, the doctors gave me 6 weeks. So June of 2007 was my first expiration date. When I got that news, that I did what most of us would do, and those who've received that kind of news, many have done, is you go home and you cry. There's a sense of overwhelm and a sense of helplessness and confusion, frustration, anger, pick an emotion, they run
All of
through
it. Yeah.
at a time like that. Exactly. But what I decided to do, and it just so happened to be on that third day after I got this news, is it was so clear to me that while my doctor, who I adore to this day, and I'm very close friends with, he had given me his best assessment based on his experience, based on his knowledge of cancer and the brain and the body. He was doing his best. But I came to realize I hadn't been doing mine because I had a lot of beliefs, many of which I had no clue where they came from, a lot of which I recognized I was no longer in alignment with. So on that third day, what I did, John, I took everything I ever believed to be true and I began to question it. Everything from, you think of the social topics, gender identity, you think of things like health and well-being, you think of relationships and siblings, and then you move on to bigger things like politics and religion. And I grew up in a very strict Christian household. And the God that I know today is very different than the God I knew growing up. But had I not taken that time to say, you know what? That's your opinion. That there's nothing more that I'm meant to do here in this earthly experience. And I'm grateful that you've told me that, because it opened up, it sparked, it lit that fuse to where I began to question everything. I read every spiritual text I could get my hands on. I learned about faith backgrounds that I had no idea ever existed. But in doing so, I found my identity. And in finding that identity, I began to realize the interconnectedness of it all. And by it all, I mean you and me. I mean the plants outside, the trees. I mean the car crashes that go on, and the war. We're all interconnected. And until we begin to realize that, we're going to continue to act like a bunch of individual creatures and beings out here on some uh, analog island all by ourselves, trying to navigate life's challenges. And so it was through that process that I did a couple of things. I went off all of the meds I had been on, cold turkey. And mind you, I did have a registered nurse come in and help me do that. I didn't do it on my own.
Yeah.
No more chemicals in my body, whole food, raw diet. And I stopped adhering to beliefs that I wasn't sure still served me. We get so wrapped up in who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing. And all of that is predicated on a list of beliefs. But if
Yeah.
we never check in with the belief, do I still believe that? Did I ever really believe that? Do I even understand what the conversation is? If we don't check in with those questions, then we're constantly putting off until tomorrow the healing that we could be experiencing today, because we're attacking the surface of what needs to be handled and addressed, as opposed to just getting down there in the truth and reality of who we are as human creatures on this planet, also being interconnected with all of those around us.
Right. So that was in 2017, and that
2007.
sorry, 2007. So obviously you were well past the 6 weeks. And,
Yeah.
and so how can I ask you this? How old would you have been at that point? Because you're still a very young person even now.
I was 34. I had just turned 34
Yeah.
when I had that conversation.
You were
But I
in the
had battled
prime of
cancer
your life.
since I was 22.
You
So
what?
that I had battled cancer since I was
Oh,
22 years old. So that was kind of a culmination for me of many years of multiple treatments and surgeries and doing what I was told to do. I was a rule follower.
right.
And it wasn't until I began to ask about the rules, to question the rules, not from a place of rebellion, but from a place of needing to understand. Okay, there's these rules. For example, I learned early on in my cancer battle that I had one person tell me, if all you can eat is ice cream, eat ice cream. I had an oncologist tell me, don't eat that ice cream because it's all sugar molecules, and sugar molecules are the fastest traveling molecules in the human body. And that's going to attach, they're sticky because it's sugar. So you're really just perpetuating your cancer. Find something healthier to eat. And so it's that questioning. So back in 2007, when I got that prognosis, whole food, began to question everything, and little by little, my body began to respond. Go ahead.
Was the doc critical to that part? The doc that you said you still, it was very special in your life and then remained to be very special in terms of helping you along the way of making that massive change in your life and saying, I'm going to be more proactive, understanding all the elements of all the things that you need to know, that you accepted as and even didn't question before. Now you did, now you could. And he likely, as others likely, including the nurse that helped you with eliminating all the it needed that team that was there for you, that bring you to the next episode in your life and likely changed your life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. C, who I call him Dr. C, that's not his name, but that's who
Yeah,
that's how I refer to him lovingly, is at first he was quite concerned
yeah,
that I was just taking this really, I was going to clean the palate, cleanse the palate and start fresh.
yeah,
And then as we began to talk about what this journey looks like, and I had exceeded the 6 weeks, and then 12 weeks, and then 30 weeks, and then 52 weeks. At that point, the, it had shifted from a doctor patient relationship to a friendship.
right,
And we were having these conversations about the spiritual, about the metaphysical, about how that looks. We are human beings, we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
right,
And when we look at it that way, it's not that for me, this is anything that I say today has been my journey. I do
right.
not promote, I'm not here to tell anybody else how to make their own choices
No,
for them. But it's this idea of recognizing that wholeness. And a part of my journey that's been really instrumental in helping me better understand the idea of wholeness is my husband, who I met literally just a couple of months before I got that prognosis back in 2007. And we married in 2008, but he introduced me to the teachings of Christian Science. And Christian Science essentially says that we are made in the image and likeness of God. And from a human perspective, that means perfect, whole, and complete. Not humanly perfect, not humanly whole, and not humanly complete. That's not what we're striving for. We're not striving for perfectionism. We're striving to see our true identity as God's expression, as the divine expression or divine mind's expression. And so as I began to look deeper into these principles of being, well, if we're told that we're made perfect, whole, and complete, obviously we all know the stories about how sin comes into the world. But is that a reality or is that a story? Is it literal or is it figurative? And does it matter? And to me, what I learned was it doesn't matter whether it's just a story. Jesus taught in parables, and no one begrudged him of that. So it doesn't matter whether it's just a story or whether it's a literal unfoldment in some sort of physical way, because metaphysically, it cannot not be true. Because we see the oneness of being, we see the elevatedness of consciousness when we stop allowing the material distractions, the news, the traffic, the schedule, the busyness of life. When we stop allowing that, when we no longer are a slave to the human experience, when we come back and we begin to take command of our experience, then what we get to see is that our life's experience is very different than we perceive it to be. So our perception grows and we're unfolding and we're evolving. And in that growth and evolvement is where we see the healing, is where we see the liberation. And that liberation is from pain, it's from trauma, it's from worry, it's from, concern, it's from all of these human emotions that would seem to carry us further away from health, wellness, well-being with stress and what all of that comes together. And that's not what we're here for. We're literally here for the opposite journey. And that opposite journey is that one that sees our perfection, our completeness, and our wholeness. And in seeing that in ourselves, we see it in everyone around us also, even those people that irritate us the most. It makes it easier to have those relationships and those interactions because we're seeing them as an extension of ourselves and us an extension of them.
Exactly. So, what happened then, Babs, is that going back to 2007, and you started to make changes physically to your diet and other things that you were doing. You were examining all the things that were around you, and then and probably assisted you as well is your now husband, and you were still not quite married at the time, but already you had interaction likely, and he was helpful in that process, especially dealing with the religion to a certain extent of understanding that part of, but also in terms of you were taking a whole new route in all the things that you were doing before, and so what did the doc say, Dr. C, as you were an example unfolding in front of him to the best of his abilities and at great difficulty for him, he had to inform you that get ready, get your house in order, because it likely will end 6 weeks if you're lucky. And then at 1 to 12, and then at 24, and then to, so it must have been an amazing experience for him as well, that these things you hear about, you read about in the past, but here we have you explaining your journey right to us and our guests from around the world as to how did it happen, and in particular also in terms of physically to your body, your diet, or you said you went on the whole diet thing, and the pills that you were getting or the medication that you had built up over the years that you had to take on a daily basis. You said no more, and obviously you had the fortune of having somebody that was qualified to assist you in that process. And then you had Dr. C still with it, and then your now husband and your team around you, because this is not easy. There you had to deal emotionally with the 6 weeks, and then saying to yourself, I'm going to change and I'm going to question all the things that I've taken for granted and never questioned, as saying that's the way it is, as it applied to all the things. And I'm going to look at all of it, every step of the way. Is that the way I must understand it? And I must understand it as to how they all fit together as a whole, because everything is connected. How did that go?
At first, it was a challenging journey for him. And I think that I can say that we've had some really great conversations. I usually try not to speak for other people, but the spiritual component was not something that he was overly attuned to. And I think probably the best way to answer your question is to share with you then a subsequent diagnosis. Because back in 2017, I had a recurrence. And we had moved from California to Denver, Colorado. And I called Dr. C, which I actually, each year on the anniversary of the day that he had told me, you've got 6 weeks, each year on the anniversary of that day, we always have a telephone call. And he's the one who set it up. And the very first time he called me and said, hey, I want to do this every year on the anniversary of this date because I want to always be mindful to remember how wrong I was. So we would have those conversations, and it just so happened that in January of 2017, I was beginning to have some symptoms again and not feeling my best self. And he said to me, I have the perfect colleague for you in Denver. And so I scheduled the appointment to go in and see Dr. L at Dr. C's referral. And as I walked into the room or strolled into the room, he said to me, he said, Dr. C says, never to doubt you, never to doubt your dedication to finding answers, never doubt your dedication to your faith, and never doubt that you're not trying your best. And that anything that his medical files are going to tell him is only part of the story. And so now I had progressed. I was, by 2018, I was in a wheelchair. And things weren't looking really great. And we got a
What?
second expiration date. Go ahead, love.
So, Babs, was that a reoccurring of the brain cancer, or was it that a reoccurrence, right?
It
And
was, yeah. We went for
and
a full day of tests, and it was quite scary.
right,
And I got to be reminded of all of the work I had done in the previous year, the previous 10 years of
right,
questioning. It's
right,
like we can have a diagnosis. We can know that there's something askew within our physical body. And we can also know that those people who are caring for us are doing their best. But we don't have to believe that they have a full understanding of how the world operates. And that in conjunction with my spiritual work, I mean, a year and a half ago, I was on oxygen 24/7. In October of 2022, I had a stroke and it left me a quadriplegic. I can't move anything beneath my shoulders. And do you know that that was one of the most amazing gifts that has ever been given to me? Because I was a type A personality. If it's going to be, it's up to me. I got to get it done. And I'm a doer. You got to go. You got to constantly, there was a belief that I had to be busy in order to be successful in my eyes and those around me. But when you wake up and more than 70% of your body just isn't functioning, it's very easy to go to the question, why me again? Like I thought I was doing what I was called to do and to question, to live from a good place. And it's not a personal sense. It's not like there's some puppet master to the universe saying, well, John, we're going to give you this ailment, and AmiLynne, we're going to give you that one, and Tom, we're going to give you something else. It's a culmination of the things going on in our lives, and how that then becomes expressed through our body is one of those avenues whereby which we get to know that perfect, whole, and complete is not perfectionism. My body as it is right now does not function the way most humans' bodies do. But that doesn't make it any less metaphysically perfect to carry me through this journey. Different doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. And because I get to learn again to listen to my body when it's telling me I'm hot or my head hurts or there's some sort of discomfort, I'm learning that all that is communication. And when we ignore that communication from our body, guess what? We get sicker. But when we stop and we listen to it, and then we chart a path with a team, whether it's, and for me, body, mind, spirit, that's the team, body, mind, spirit. The body team isn't separate from the mind team, isn't separate from the spiritual team. Because in October 2022, there was question whether or not I would be here to talk with you today.
Exactly.
And since October 2022, I've published a TEDx talk. I have a book that's coming out on Friday. The work that I get to do each and every day is so far beyond what I would have imagined for myself before. At the end of that, how can I not be grateful for this episode that would seem to have taken life away from me? And yet what it really did was it took another layer of the veil of the human experience and just brushed it back.
So today, Babs, are you in a wheelchair?
I am.
And so 70% of your body you don't directly control then?
I don't control anything beneath my shoulders. I can kind of wiggle back and forth here,
Yeah.
but if I have to stay at a proper angle so I don't do a keyboard inspection with my nose.
Yeah.
All forward. But yeah, beneath my shoulders, I have absolutely no control.
And that is since October of 22.
Yes.
So then already Dr. C is still part of your contacts, I'm sure. That is 15 years after the 6 weeks. And then it came back again and the cancer. And then the stroke followed. The stroke then left you paralyzed, did it? And
Yeah.
so now if you look at it, just for our guest, and I'm sure you're comfortable in answering those questions, is that the likelihood of regaining your mobility is not likely. And
Well, it depends on who you ask.
yeah,
Remember, body,
that's what
mind,
I'm
and spirit.
asking.
Body, mind, and
Because
spirit. The doctors will tell me I'll never walk again.
yeah,
But my doctors will say, AmiLynne Babs, I will never question your faith, young lady.
and that's the key.
I will never question your faith because I will walk. Whether I walk the same way everyone else does, I don't care. Different doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. But I believe that the healing has already taken place. My body is perfect, whole, and complete. My understanding of what that looks like, I'm still working on. And that's what we're called to do, is to work toward that understanding of what is that perfection, that wholeness, and that completeness.
Yeah. And like you said, that it is your wholeness and your attitude in particular, and understanding the whole journey that you already started 3 days after you got the analysis from Dr. C, saying, you said, no, I'm going to examine everything that I do and what I do with me as a whole person. And you started that process, and for 15 years you were well en route, and then it obviously came back, but still the same attitude, the same you are there, because it appears to me, I was not aware of who you were in regards to the mobility, but you are very attractive for one, and I already said that to you before. And then the second one, you are so bright and full of energy. That you're unique and all those things, and then being a holistic coach in the way you are, and then a writer of books, and then a speaker, and I do the same. I write books and being a speaker, but you are a very effective presenter, in my opinion, because I can hear it on the way you present or interact with me as a speaker, and those things cross my mind, even to the extent that I'm ADHD, and a lot of people say to me, it took me a long time to find out that I was. It took me 50 years. I was born in 1940 in Holland, northeastern part of Holland, during the war years, and still remember a lot of things that we should not have seen, and was affected by PTSD and the inner child, and then was not successful, academically. I failed grade 3, failed grade 7 3 times, and then had a dream of going to Canada because we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, and I always knew I wanted to go to the land of my heroes. And then the other thing that I wanted to do is build a lumber mill. But I was always troubled by academically. I was kind of looked down on by a lot of people, and the friends that I went to school with, that went on to college and university, I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today. But then, it was a bit of a challenge. And then it took me, I came to Canada in 1965, started with nothing. It was the dream of building a mill, lumber mill, and then by coincidence found a book in the store here in 1997, after I'd been here for 32 years. I was then, walked into the store, picked up this book, and by Dr. Halliwell, the Driven to Distraction. And as I opened the book, I looked in the book, and I still don't know why I picked up the book. I still, and I looked at it, it was about ADHD, and I said, oh my God, that's me. And I was ashamed of it, and I wrote in the book in Dutch, now I finally know who I am. And, and then it took me 5 years before I would go to my doc. There was a personal friend, also had delivered our 2 daughters, but I was ashamed about ADHD. So I went to his office, and he said, hey, John, why are you here? And I said, I think I got ADHD. And so we checked it, and yes, I do. And so by then I was 62. And then, the reason that I say that is that it became to me something that a lot of young people in particular, a lot of people didn't understand ADHD that well. And to me, it has become what I call a superpower. And I speak, I do a lot of presenting, and I speak about it. I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked. I'm going to send you a copy of it, actually. And and so it took me till I was 62 until I found that ADHD became a very important part of me and giving me confidence that I was okay, and so from there on in, but now I'm nearly 84. Since that time, I've become a very active speaker and presenter, and and then obviously a podcaster, on a global level, and then also writing books and have 10 different companies, including a couple of lumber companies. But it's not about that. It's people told me before. They said, you should write a book because you have done so many things and blah, blah, blah. Writing books, as you know, because your book is coming out on Friday, is not easy. And so it took me I wrote this book, Against All Odds. I'm going to send you a copy of it. I'm going to sign it for you. And it's not about hurrah, hurrah, how successful John is or was, but it is not about that. It is about the opposite, going through all the ups and downs and staying the course, never give up. I always say attitude, passion, work ethic. And so when I came here to Prince George, and I couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and then I counted my money at least 3 times. And I came to Prince George because I wanted to buy a lumber mill or build a lumber mill. And they told me that all the timber was in the British Columbia, so that's where I wanted. And then once I came there, they said, go to Prince George, that's a boob town. So by the time I came here, I can see still the building where the Greyhound station is. I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But I had attitude. I will always avoid the negative. No matter what happens, tomorrow I know will be a better day. And I did already since I was a kid. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 150%. And work ethic, I work harder than anybody. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. Even now, I always think I'm late. I always make my bed, and so. And then the other part about it is that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that a lot of people say to me, how do you do all this stuff that you're doing? I said, ADHD. That's why I do it. Yeah, how I do it. And so to me, it became what I call a superpower. And wherever an opportunity presents itself, I feel terrible about people that have ADHD in particular and feel that it is a liability or disorder. I say, no, it isn't. Once you understand it and then look at it, the benefits that you have in a lot of ways, then you can make it successful. If I can do it, growing up during the war years and then starting with nothing and on and on and on and on, and for 50 years of my life building already companies, and then gaining that confidence, I hope at least that my message to those people and to people in general can be that, have confidence in yourself, understand to parents that have children that are affected by or believe that they have ADHD, or the benefit of it, I call, then make them understand it, that, and that it can be an asset, not a liability. And then you are inspirational to me, and that's why I make that connection, is that it crossed my mind that when you started to speak and the way you were acting, I thought, I wouldn't be surprised if she's ADHD. So I did, so because you're so full of energy. And,
The brain is an amazing organ when you think about it, because there's 2 things I'll share. I learned through my digging, my seeking. I learned that a butterfly with 70% of its wing damaged or missing can defy gravity and take flight. 70% of its wing, either damaged or missing, a butterfly can still defy science, small s, and take flight.
Yeah.
And so when I take that to me is kind of that metaphysical. When I pull that into the practical, what does that mean to me? Because so many times we read books or we listen to podcasts or we watch a program and we hear about how someone else overcame fill in the blank. But they don't answer the question, how do I do that now?
Yeah.
And so for me, when I think of something, I try to make that correlation. I know that right now, my last brain scans, about 30% of my brain is diseased with cancer. 30%. And yet you and I get to have this conversation today because I am not my body. I am not my brain. It is part of the vessel that carries me through this experience. But otherwise abled doesn't mean unable. Otherwise abled doesn't mean unable. So whether it's ADHD or cancer or uh, epilepsy or dyslexia, I mean,
All of those.
pick
Right.
out of the physician's code book. Otherwise abled doesn't mean unable, and different doesn't mean wrong. It
No,
just means different. Because at
exactly.
the end of the day, whether you believe in God or Allah or the universe or the big, whatever it is you believe in that brought you to this place or this experience, it doesn't make mistakes. The universe, when we talk about science, small s, the universe is constantly unfolding and evolving. It knows what it's doing. Um, Wild animals know how to care for their young. They know how to hunt. They know how to care for their families. They don't have to read a book to do it because the universe is given us everything we need. God, source creator, has given us everything we need. What we do, though, is we get wrapped up in what society tells us. Oh,
Exactly.
you have ADHD. There must be something wrong with you. Oh, you have cancer. Oh, I must pity you because I don't know what else to do. And so, John, you and I get to go out there and show people that a diagnosis does not an identity create. A diagnosis simply gives us the tools and resources that we need to be our full, whole, and complete self and to express that in a way that's comfortable and right for us in our own circumstances.
And could well be superior than what you would have been before that. Simply because that's how I look at it, is saying all the tools that you said you need to be successful, I define them already. So and you are an example of that, and so many others. And that again is the whole concept of wholeness, is that that this life that we've been given in some form or fashion, that is so amazing, and we see it all around us, as you already said, and the being able to fly, and 2/3 of your one wing is missing, is amazing. And then a lot of times, and we have lots of nature all around us here, and I watch them and I respect them. It is just amazing how this whole life all around us, of which we are just a very small part, actually,
Yeah.
existing and coexisting.
Well, and I think too, it's important for us to remember that our best understanding may or may not be the whole truth. It doesn't mean that our understanding is wrong, but what if it's incomplete?
Yeah.
And by incomplete, what I'm saying is this. So our journeys were very separate and very different. I was a rule follower, straight A's in high school, college, double majored in college, had my postgraduate degree by the time I was 24. Was successful in my career, like I was almost obsessed. Well, I was obsessive compulsive at one point in my life, and everything had a place and everything was in its place. I was very rigid. And so being on that side of life versus a world where it's like you're just not following society's norms. Look, I ticked off every box that society would say you're supposed to have: a good education, good career, good family, like all the et ceteras. And I still got cancer. But I had a cancer diagnosis. I was not cancer.
Yeah.
And when we begin to look at these things that show up in our experience, what if they are a sundial? What if they are a compass? What if they are an invitation as opposed to a punitive disciplinary thing, that we've done something wrong and so therefore we have ADHD, or we've done something wrong and so therefore we have cancer? What if that's just the uniqueness of our experience coming out? And look, I don't minimize cancer. It's awful and it's ugly and it's hard. And I've lived with it off and on since I was 22 years old. So I know what I'm talking about here. But if you don't own it as your identity, then you get to work through it as opposed to succumbing to it. Because if I
Yeah.
had listened to the doctors, I could have very easily gone home and given up. And I think that so often that's what we do. We get a diagnosis, no matter what it is. And we think that it is either a literal or proverbial life sentence. Oh, I'm diabetic. Oh, I've got, high blood, I've got this, that, or the other. When really what it is an invitation to better know ourselves in
Yeah.
a way that we can contribute fully to life. Oh,
Yeah.
I know that this is a little different about me. So how can I use that as a superpower, as you have said?
So that then being said, Babs, the what is the title of the book? Have you got a copy of the book there? That
I do, but it's behind me, and
okay,
unfortunately, I'm here alone, so I can't show you.
no, yeah,
The title of
that's
the
fair.
book is "Conversations of Consequence: Lessons from the Still Small Voice."
Okay, we will get it by the time we will place the we're going to have this one with your guest in on Thursday, and then we will have a copy of the book showing on the screen. Now the other part is that you have a website as well that is active. And
I
how
do.
can people, because you're such an amazing inspiration, how can they learn more about you and about you as an holistic coach and all the things that you do that are so inspirational to people around the world, not only the ones that are affected in ways that you are, but also the people around them and everybody in a general sense. So there we have a copy of your book now showing on the screen. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
That's okay. There she is.
Yeah, there
There
she
she is.
is.
I'm very
Yeah.
proud of it. Very
Yeah.
excited. It's the first, hopefully the first of many, but it's been a journey, that's for certain.
Yeah.
But
So
if
here
people
we
want
show it.
to, yeah, I'm sorry.
There we showing it again, a beautiful picture. I see you. Are you? I see this person is floating.
Mhm.
Is that
Partially
the,
in the water, partially out, and there's a
yeah,
butterfly
and the
suspended above.
butterfly? Oh
It's the
my goodness.
metamorphosis of life.
Yeah, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Available on
It'll be
Friday,
on Amazon. Mhm.
Amazon. Okay,
It'll also
and
be Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, and all of that, but Amazon's the easiest place for most people to go to.
yeah.
And if folks would like to connect, my website is just my name, AmiLynneCarroll.com,
Okay,
and my Instagram, which is where I spend more social time than anywhere else, is just my handle is the same at AmiLynne Carroll.
excellent. I think it was an amazing conversation, Babs.
Me too.
Yeah. So be available on Thursday, and I'm going to send you these books. I'll sign them, and we'll send them out. You should have them next week. And
Well, I'll get your address and I'll send you one of mine. We'll
yeah,
we'll do a book swap.
I like it. And Scott will be in touch with you. And again, let's make sure we stay in touch.
I would
And
like that very
Amazing podcast, Babs.
Well,
Take care.
I hope I've lived up to the quality of the other episodes that I've listened to that I've very richly enjoyed. So
Yeah, not
thank you.
not only equal to, in a lot of cases, better than. So yeah, no question about that. You're unique. Thanks, Babs. Take care.
All righty. Take care and thank you again.